What is up, Rockstars and YouTube community? Chaz here, bringing you on a guest speaker, which I am, wait, this way, there you are. Super excited about Mr. BookFlipper himself, the creator of eFlip, Caleb Roth. I got into this, I actually don't even remember where I found it. It was somewhere on Instagram. Somebody was doing a live, stories mode. They were doing little live stories of their eFlips. I'm like, what the heck is an eFlip? And sure enough, I hear you can buy from Amazon to send back to Amazon, and I was sold, done, in. So I signed up that night, been doing it ever since, and just sent out, actually I got a big old pile right behind me I'm getting ready to send out just from eFlip, which I'm excited. So aside from that, I'm going to shut up because you guys hear enough of me, and I'm going to kick it over to Mr. Caleb. He's going to go through a few slides for you, give you an overview. If you have any questions throughout this, there's a chat option. So if you're on your phone, I actually don't use the phone too much, so I don't know the exact layout. Somewhere on there on your phone is going to be a chat feature. If you're on your computer, check out the bottom. You'll see chat. Opens up a window, and you can drop all your questions in there. I'm going to be kind of a moderator with the chat option and get in there. So without further ado, floor is all yours, my friend.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Chaz. Well, hey, everybody. For those that don't know me, my name is Caleb Roth, and I'm coming to you live. It is, March 10th, 3:10 p.m. So we got a couple of 3:10s going on. That's pretty cool. I'm in Denver, Colorado, and I'm excited to be here with you all. I feel like my wall is fairly naked. I've just got a picture of a bike up there. Chaz has, that awesome collection of just everything. So I've got a little guitar character here, little nuts and bolts.
You're into
this for several years. Yeah, so I need to make a little shelf and get my own wall going.
If you ever go down to Venice, go to Venice Beach.
Florida?
Yeah, so this one's down in Cali.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm like, Florida. There is a guy who does, this is a small one. He does huge ones too.
Oh, that's cool.
Venice Beach has these guys.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad you found me, Chaz. I was kind of looking at Instagram the other night. I'm more into Facebook. I'm kind of old school that way, just, my generation, I suppose. But there's a ton of stuff on eFlip. I was just, looking up hashtag eFlip and was blown away by the people marketing the product for me. So if that's you, and I know several of you out there have reached out to me and said, hey, thank you for that. And we're going to give you a little bit of a demo and just kind of explain kind of the concepts or the economics behind eFlip today. So I'm fairly informal. Chaz, if you have questions, by all means, jump in and ask him. I've got a few slides just so we have a little bit of direction to this talk. Otherwise, I'll just talk aimlessly for about an hour, and nobody wants that. And if you guys have questions, feel free to holler, put them in the chat box there, and Chaz will relay those on to me. So I really want to make sure that this is what you guys want to hear. I'm going to share a little bit about the story behind eFlip and really why eFlip works. And we'll jump into that. And if you have questions, please jump in anytime. So let me know if you can see my screen there.
Golden.
Off and running. All right. So this is the economics of eFlip. I've done introduction talks. For those of you that have seen me, I'm going to try and mix it up a little bit so I don't repeat the same old boring things about eFlip. A little bit about me. That's me on the left. The good-looking one is my wife, and she really is responsible for running the BookFlipper empire. I get to be the face of the business, and I run the blog and kind of have fun out there. My wife really keeps everything going behind the scenes. She's detail-oriented. She ends up listing a lot of the books that we end up finding. So she doesn't like to put her face out there, but I can do it on her behalf anyway. So that's my wife. I run a blog over at thebookflipper.com. I've kind of painted myself into a corner. I guess I can't flip anything else. But our mantra this year is make hay while the sun shines. There's a lot of money still to be had in books, even with the fees, even with a lot of the changes coming down through Amazon. And we've thought about switching gears and getting into other products, but we know books. We're good at it. We understand the margins. We know how to scale the business. And we're committed just to running with it until we get bored of it and decide to change gears, or Amazon kills it off, which I don't see happening anytime in the near future. And if that happens tomorrow, we get a call, or Amazon just kills the whole category for whatever reason, we'll retool, we'll figure it out. But until then, books is it for us. I'm also an angel investor in Accelerlist. I love software. It's scalable, it's fun, it can solve problems. And it kind of is a mix between marketing and some technical pieces as well. And so I just love that. So if you're not familiar with Accelerlist, check it out. We're trying to come after Inventory Lab and eat their lunch as a way to list items better, not just books. Again, I'm books, but I try and broaden those horizons a little bit. And we get them to do a lot of data as well. There's going to be some pretty cool metrics available with Accelerlist soon. So again, I'm a self-proclaimed data junkie. If you've checked out the blog, you know I love to try and make some pretty charts and explain industry trends with data, and that's a lot of fun. I'm a Michigander. My Sparties just lost today. It's unfortunate, but the big dance is next week, so that'll be exciting. I live in Denver now. I've loved mountains, love to travel, and Denver's just been a great fit. So my wife and I have been out here for about 2 years. And I've purchased a little over 8,000 textbooks. I was just going back and looking at my Amazon numbers. I've purchased a little over 8,000 books online in the last 12 months on top of what I bought in physical stores. So without further ado, I want to explain a little bit about the opportunity that's here with books, especially when you combine it with online arbitrage or OA. There's a couple reasons why this is a profitable category, and we'll get into those. Specifically, we're going to talk about seasonality, the prime advantage, which many of you are aware of. Market inefficiencies really help us as well. And because you're online, this is extremely scalable. And I know that's important to you, Chaz. My wife and I are all about having a lifestyle business. I worked a corporate gig, made great money. I worked for Johnson & Johnson for almost 6 years. Loved it. But it's not flexible. You get 2 or 3 weeks of paid vacation, and that's it. And you got to show up in the office or travel when they tell you to. And I really like having a flexible business. My wife and I just got back on Tuesday from a 3-week trip off in Australia, New Zealand, Thailand, Bali, and Singapore, and in Hawaii on the way back just because it was there. And so the business is really flexible. We're spoiled to live in the day and age we do. We can run the business online. I was able to work every day if I wanted to for an hour or 3, and then go out and enjoy just some really cool areas of the world. And we live in a great age, and if you're not taking advantage of that, shame on you. So let's jump into it. Seasonality. Most of you that do RA or sell, physical products other than books, you're familiar with Q4. That's what we live for. So this is a Keepa chart. If you're familiar with reading these ranks on the bottom, the closer an item gets to 0 or 1, the better it's selling. So anytime you see this smiley face in Keepa, or if you're a camel user, it's a frowny face. Anytime you see this smiley face, that means the rank is really, really good. It's got a lot of demand and the product is selling. For those of you that live for Q4, this is the typical chart that you're used to seeing on toys and other physical products. It's it sells well year round, and it sells just awesome for about a month or 2, right around November, December. So that's Q4. The beauty of textbooks is we don't just get one Q4. If you look at the December timeframe right around Christmas, you don't see a huge jump in demand or spike in demand around Christmas, but we get that in January for 4 to 6 weeks. That's the spring semester. We also get that in the fall around August, September. So we get 2 seasons, or basically 2 Q4s when it comes to selling textbooks, which is awesome. And it actually gets a little bit better. Chaz, are you familiar with Google Trends?
I am not. I've not messed with that too much.
Like most things with Google, Google is going to own the world at some point. They have so much data, and they don't market what they have. They make specific products for niche categories, and they just let people find them on their own. I don't get it. My brother works for them, and he's like, look, we're a data company, we're a software company, we're not really a marketing company. And I just found this a little bit ago. For those of you that don't know about Google Photos as well, it's free, unlimited storage of your photos back into the cloud. It'll sort your photos any which way. It's pretty cool. I'm a big Google guy. But Google Trends basically lets you look up any term. So here I looked up the term textbooks. You can look at worldwide. You can look at individual markets. You can look at individual states. You can look at different time frames, and you can even compare terms. So a fun one, I don't have this isn't up live, these are just slides. A fun one is buy textbooks and sell textbooks and see what time of the year people are actually searching for those individual keywords. It's really, really enlightening. You can have a lot of fun with Google Trends. So for those of you that are doing SEO, it's really important to understand what you're looking for. So the way this works, 100 is the highest it's going to show for anything, and that's the highest within your time frame and in your region. That's the highest concentration of searches. So not surprising, this is a chart from January to December of last year. So you just get a feel of when people are searching textbooks on Google, because if they're searching on Google, odds are they're buying it on Amazon or wherever they can find them, and Amazon owns the market when it comes to books. So not surprisingly, fall is the most looked for term. So you see that in August, September. January is number 2, but you also have 2 other mini spikes. One is right at the beginning of May, and that's summer term. So a lot of colleges offer classes you can take for 2 weeks or 4 weeks in the summer, get a few extra credits and graduate earlier, save a few dollars. So you see a little bit of a spike. So remember, we're not just Q4. We've got something in Q3, something in Q1. May gives us a little bit of exposure in Q2. And then we actually do see a little bit of a bump in mid-December, and that is either due to winter term and or it's due to college bookstores buying the books before the students come back. They're going to load up on the used books as well. So again, we're not just painted into a corner. It's not just we get one time where we can sell books well. We really have kind of 4 mini textbook seasons, which is pretty cool. What does that mean? If the demand is up, we're going to see the price jump as well. So for those of you familiar with Keepa, we can see the used price, it's the black line. And this is just tracking the lowest used price on Amazon. Again, a time frame of January through December of 2016. And you can see that in January, because the demand goes way up, there's a lot of sales, the price goes up as well. So it goes from an average price of about $40 to really close to Amazon's price, roughly $60 or $70. In the off season, it comes down. And then in the summer, it comes down even more. Students aren't buying these as often. A lot of textbooks do sell year round, but this particular one, the price comes way down, probably in the $5 to $10 range for a couple of days if you were lucky enough to buy it. And then you can, again, wait and hold and sell this during the fall semester, which is usually the strongest semester when it comes to selling books. So that seasonality allows you to take advantage and buy books in the off season if you want. There's NPR stories of people buying up textbooks and storing them in storage units in the summer and then throwing them in, selling them on Amazon, mostly merchant fulfilled during textbook season. And so you can kind of do that same mentality with eFlip, or you can take advantage of what I call the Prime advantage. So for probably everybody on here is probably a Prime customer, I would imagine. We like getting our items fast. I think Amazon's rolling out in 250 markets this year, same day Prime, or Prime Now, I think is what they're calling it. So I was in Nashville last year. Denver here, we don't even have a warehouse. It's unfortunate. I have to ship my items halfway across the country when I sell Prime. But when I buy Prime, I gotta wait 2 days. You know, it's still fast. 2 days is great. But we were in Nashville last year buying some books, and I was at a buddy's house. I was kind of teaching him how to sell. I'm like, hey, you need to get a Dymo printer, and I was showing him how to get it set up. And we go on Amazon. I'm like, hey, let's just buy it Prime. We'll, you know, you can have it in 2 days by the time you leave. Well, I went to check out and it said, hey, do you want to have it delivered today within like 2 hours? And it's the same price. I'm like, yeah, still free shipping. So Nashville, you're very lucky, and I think that's rolling out to 250 markets as well. So Prime is awesome. Well, they did a survey in 2016, reasons why users in the US join Amazon Prime. And some of it's related to streaming videos, exclusive deals, the Kindle library. But the #1 reason by far is that it offers free 2-day shipping. Americans are impatient. We want our items and we want them now. And it's awesome. So people that are buying Prime are your ideal customer. If you're selling FBA, that gives you a huge advantage over your merchant fulfilled counterparts. Again, similar study, the average Prime customer drops about $1,200 a year on Amazon. The average non-Prime customer is dropping closer to $500. So people want it fast and they're willing to pay for it. The second piece is, as of June of last year, June of 2016, over half of Amazon's US customers are now Prime. That's awesome. And this is kind of the Prime growth over the last several years. We went from 25 million in 13 up to about 65, 70 million by the end of 2016. So those are your potential customers if you're selling FBA. One thing that's interesting, the number of Prime offers. So again, there's a Fortune article down here if you want to look it up, if you want to call my bluff, if you don't believe me. So there's 52% of people that buy on Amazon are Prime customers, and they probably prefer to buy Prime offers if they're there. The number of people selling Prime, and this includes Amazon, if they're on the listing, only 13% of physical products are actually available Prime. So what does this mean? If we go back to Economics 101, there's more people buying, which means there's more demand for products than there is supply when it comes to Prime. Anytime that happens, when demand is higher than supply, price goes up. And that's really the benefit behind eFlip. eFlip is taking advantage of the fact, so you get 2 benefits. 1, you get the seasonality, where you can buy in the off season and sell during season. 2, more importantly, you can buy merchant fulfilled items, turn around and sell them Prime, and take advantage of that price disparity. Don't believe me? For those of you that don't sell books or aren't familiar, these are actual orders within the last year or so. And these are books that I sold. So here's my sale price, $24.94. At the exact moment of this sale, or the same day, I went ahead and looked back at the actual offer, what was available. Someone could have bought the same book for $265 plus shipping. So under $7, they could have had it shipped to their house, but they would have had to wait 2 weeks for it. Instead, they bought my copy Prime, got it in 2 days. Other examples, here's a book that someone paid nearly $70 for it when they could have bought it on the open market merchant fulfilled for about $30. So people do pay more when it comes to Prime. I've got lots of these examples. Here's a $46 book. The cheapest merchant fulfilled was about $16 by the time you factor in shipping. So people love Prime. This particular book, I'm not going to price it at $200 or probably not even $100. There's a limit to how much people will pay over the merchant fulfilled price. We'll get to that in other conversations if we want to go there. But people will pay more for Prime, and that's what we're looking for. For those of you that scout physical books, you can look for the same concept when you're out scanning. So these are the merchant fulfilled prices or the used prices. These are the FBA. So you can buy this. This includes shipping. So $4 delivered to your house, merchant fulfilled. The lowest Prime price is $22. And we see the same trend over and over and over. $11 merchant fulfilled, $44 Prime. And those are selling. This is a little bit higher rank, so maybe that's not realistic. Here's an awesome rank, $66 merchant fulfilled, close to $100 Prime. And those differences aren't there in every single book, but they are definitely there when it comes to the marketplace. The third piece of this puzzle that makes eFlip or buying online arbitrage books work is that it's just an inefficient market. So there's an incredibly high sales volume when it comes to selling on Amazon. Roughly 100,000 unique titles sell every single hour. We know this based on sales rank. So sales rank, if a book sells a copy, it's going to drop to about 100,000, and it's going to keep steadily, the rank will rise upward every hour until it sells again. So if a book doesn't sell for about 5 to 7 days, it reaches a rank of 1 million. Some sellers think that's a really high number. For me, it just means the book sold 5 or 6 days ago. If it sells another copy, it's going to drop to 100,000. Though, and rank updates every hour, so we can then, kind of back into it, say, all right, if the rank drops roughly to 100,000, that means at least 100,000 unique titles are selling every hour on Amazon. Many of those copies probably are selling multiple times. Those are the ones that are going to be a rank under 10,000. So lots of volume out there, tons of sellers. There's lots of new sellers getting in all the time. You see the just launched icon next to a lot of sellers. That's great. A lot of them don't necessarily know what they're doing. They may price incorrectly, or they may tank the prices on accident because they don't know what they're doing. And then third, repricing software is okay. It's good for your business, especially if you have a lot of inventory. But a lot of times you can open yourself up to mistakes and end up repricing incorrectly. So all this is it's a very inefficient market. Stuff is changing every single minute out there, every single second. This leads to price fluctuations, and that leads to opportunities when it comes to buying books. Here's an example. So here's a Keepa chart. The black line is the used price over time. You can see it's remained roughly steady at about $20. However, over a span of about 8 or 9 days, you can see the price just tank downwards. Well, what's happening? When you go look at the actual individual offers, you can see that there's 2 sellers, Seattle Goodwill, Better World Books, are actually competing with each other with repricers. So they're in there beating each other every couple minutes or every couple hours. They're going to drop the price by a set percentage from each other. And until somebody comes in and buys this book, they're just going to keep racing to the bottom until either someone buys up a copy or until they reach their price floor. So this is a great opportunity. You could come in here as an online arbitrageur, if that's a term. You could buy both these copies and not only buy them for about $8 delivered to your front door. Now the market price, you've just moved the market price from about $5 back to where it was around 20, but you're also going to sell this prime. So you can even sell these a little bit higher. For those of you that are good at reading Keepa charts, this orange line is Amazon's price. They're on it for about 30. So we can't list it for any more than that and realistically expect to sell it. But this is a great example. You could buy both of these books and probably sell them in the $20 to $25 range, no problem. And that is an example of the market inefficiency. And there are thousands of these examples happening all the time just because the market is moving so much. The final part, so that we kind of explain why books make sense, why selling prime makes sense, and then just some of the market inefficiencies at play. The last piece of the puzzle is that when you run a business that's online, yeah, we're sourcing physical books online, but there's some really neat factors that open up. This business is now scalable and it's flexible. Again, my wife and I were just out of the country for 3 weeks. We still ran our business because we can operate anywhere with an internet access. So we could buy books from any of those countries along our way. We could buy them at any time of the day. So if you're sourcing at library sales or thrift stores, you're stuck. You can only buy books when that store is open. So maybe 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. But if you're a night owl or get up at 4 in the morning, you can't go out and source books at that time of day. But the internet's always open. Amazon's always open. You can go in there and buy the books. And then secondly, we'll get into this a little bit, and there's a lot of excitement recently about prep companies. So the ideal for me when it comes to pricing a book or managing a book, I want to go to the store, I'm going to buy it, so I'm touching it once. When I take it home, I only want to touch the book one more time. So I clean the book barely. I usually just rip a sticker off the back. I'm kind of looking through it, grading the condition. I use AccelerList, or you could use Inventory Lab or any other listing software. I use my Dymo printer, put a label on it, and I throw it in a box. When I finish one box of books, I close it up. 99% of the time, all the books go to the same warehouse. I don't have to repackage. I don't have to retouch. So I'm touching the book twice. Once when I source it, once when I list it. With sourcing online and tying in with a prep company, it's kind of a touchless system. You can touch it 0 times. So all you have to do is have an internet connection, spend a few minutes clicking through and buying some books. You can actually then drop ship the books directly to a prep company. We've got one that manages eFlip orders as well. It's texaspps.com. They've got some discounts for eFlip members. We've kind of worked out a volume deal with them. And you can actually drop ship the books to them for $1 a book and never touch the book. So your business can be run. This opens the door. People from Canada, the UK. We've got customers from cruise ships, actually. I know, Chaz, you're doing a big cruise ship.
We'll do an eFlip live sourcing session on the show.
There you go. We've actually got cruise ship employees, at least one that's out there. I think he's with Royal Caribbean as well, so maybe you'll run into him on your ship. Yes. But he's out there, and he works during the day. Those guys work their tails off. Please leave good tips when you go on your cruise ship, because those guys are overworked and underpaid. But he's able to go in at night with the internet on the boat and just buy books, ships them to a prep company. And while he's moving around the world on his cruise ship, he's running a book business at the same time, which is pretty darn cool. So the ability to scale the business, because you can buy books any time of the day. You could even outsource the buying. You could find a virtual assistant, teach them your methods for using eFlip. They can log into your account anywhere in the world. If you want to find somebody in the Philippines to run a business, or find a family member that works from home, you can really build this. If you have a little bit of, you're gonna have to increase your costs a little bit. You're paying the prep company $1 a book. I pay my online scouts $1 a book as well for books that meet my criteria. So my buy cost just goes up by $2, but I'm buying time with that. And time is the most important commodity, or most precious commodity you have. I can make more money in my lifetime. You guys can all make more money. You can't get more time back. And so even if I hamper my margins a little bit, if I can buy that time, which means my wife and I can go travel the world, or spend time with our friends, or help out at church, or whatever is important to you, that to me is worth it. And so as long as the business is profitable, we're happy to keep moving forward. Just a side story, I actually met with a couple yesterday in Denver. A guy reached out to me. He was down. I'm like, yeah, sure, buy me coffee and we'll chat for a little bit. Well, him and his wife have run an eBay business for the last 10 years. Based on, I didn't get all his numbers, but it sounds like he's sold. Can you mute a few of those?
Yeah. You guys, if you can mute yourselves, track down.
We're not playing games.
I don't know. There was a Facebook clip running around the other day of somebody on like NBC News or something. He was doing a call like this, and his kids were in the background on national television running around on the call.
I need to find the other
You can't find the last code.
Okay, I think I found which one.
All right, that sounds better.
There we go.
All right, so anyway, there's this couple that's selling on eBay, and they've got an inventory of about 500 clothing items. It sounds like they sell mostly men's clothing, and they're selling, they've got the business figured out. It sounds like they're making good money, but they're sourcing every single day. They're doing all the work themselves. And I asked, how much time off did you take last year? And they said, we had 5 days off all year, including Sundays. Wow. So they built a good business. It's better to have, it's better to work for yourself than for the man, but they don't really have a business. They have a job. The beauty of FBA is again, not only were we buying books through eFlip on our vacation, but because we run our entire book business through FBA, we were still selling books every day. And we have a scout team that was adding to that as we were there as well. So our business was still growing and still running in the background, and we weren't even there to ship out books. So again, we live in just a crazy day and age where you have this opportunity, and it's hard work. I'm not saying you can just make a few mouse clicks and retire early, but it's something you can do and actually earn a pretty good income. And you got to figure out what's important. If you want to maximize your dollars and maximize profits, go for it. if you want to maximize your time, which is more important to me, you can optimize your business that way. So that's a little bit of the opportunity that's there. I want to share, are there any questions from there, Chaz? Otherwise, I have just a few more slides on kind of the concept of eFlip.
Nailed it, man. Quick note, if you guys do have questions, drop those in the chat and we'll be hitting those afterwards.
Cool. And I think I misspoke earlier. I said we were going to do an eFlip demo. We're not right now. There's tons of eFlip demos out there. I've done a handful of them on YouTube. Reezy's done a handful. A couple other people have actually kind of walked through and shared how to use the software. If you sign up for it, we've got a video section called eFlip University. We share all kinds of ways to grade books, how to deal with returns, the concepts behind eFlip, and then a bunch of sourcing strategies. So if you want to learn the strategies, just go to YouTube or sign up for the software. There's a trial. We've got an extended trial for you as well for the FBA Rockstars here. We'll get to that at the end of this call as well. But there's tons of demos and ways to learn the strategies. I'm just going to talk big picture and explain the software. I know some of you probably not seen it. We're just going to take about 5-10 minutes here, and then we'll get to some questions. So the big idea, again, our business, I worked in orthopedics for 5 or 6 years. I did medical device marketing. Medical device is just fancy terminology for knee replacements and hip replacements. So mostly older people, your joints give out, a lot of sports injuries. Every once in a while, you get younger people that slip and fall on the ice. Chaz, you're what, Portland area?
Portland, yep.
You guys get much ice there?
Yeah, a couple times a year.
Okay, so Denver, we get a lot of ice. We used to joke about it, but the colder and the harsher the winters were around the entire country, the better our sales were. We had a big trauma division. And so we called winter a slip and fall season. It's a little crass, but the more snow there was, the more ice there was, the more people would slip and fall, and the better our profits were as a company. But we provided good resources. So I did medical device marketing, I did sales training, and I eventually moved to Denver to do sales. So I kind of did a handful of things. Those things work really well when it comes to building and selling software. I have to market the software. I've got to train people to use it, so sales training, and then I've got to sell it. If you can have the best software in the world, but if you can't figure out how to sell it, it's not going to do anything. So the main idea behind eFlip, one, I'm a data guy, so we were building a huge database of every book we could find on Amazon. Amazon doesn't just give you their ISBNs, you got to kind of build your own list. So we worked through tons of tactics. We bought lists, we bribed libraries to get access to their databases. We talked to big sellers and got their lists of every book they've ever listed. And we eventually assembled a big database of books, and I didn't know what to do with it exactly. We were out sourcing books. So, and again, just one more tip here. I didn't quit my day job and jump right into Amazon. I kind of straddled both. So I got married 3 years ago, and I was traveling about 100 days a year for work. And it's great. I get to go, stay at nice hotels, eat steak and lobster, meet really cool people, go all over the country and even outside of the country. And it's great as a bachelor. But when you get married, you decide it's actually nice to be home every once in a while as well. So my wife and I were sitting down trying to figure out, all right, we got this corporate gig. I want to try and figure out a way to work for myself. And for us, obviously the Amazon opportunity was there, but we didn't just quit and jump right in. We actually sat down and said, all right, we're going to go in and we're going to find 100 books a week. Just see if we can find 100 at thrift stores, library sales. I was at a small town in Indiana at the time, so we had to drive a little bit. We drove to Chicago, Detroit, Grand Rapids, Indianapolis. And, we just said, all right, let's find 100 books a week and try and build this business. And can we start it up? Can we scale it up? And then eventually, can we step back and outsource pieces of it? And that journey lasted a little over a year until we realized, hey, this is a legitimate business. We can build it big enough. We had an inventory, I think at that time, of 3,000 or 4,000 books. So it wasn't crazy, but it was good. And we knew that we could step away. So again, there's something glamorous and it's enticing to say, hey, just quit your day job and screw the man and just work for yourself. But I think it's really important to build up something on the side and then step away. And you can do it. You can hustle on nights and weekends. And I don't love that word hustle. I think it's overused. I don't know if you preach that a lot, Chaz. Apologies if you do. It's important to work smart, not necessarily hard. Mm-hmm. Be smart. Look at your margins. Look at your business. 80-20, everything you possibly can. All right, that's my soapbox. I'll get off it now. So we were building our business sourcing from physical locations, Goodwill, Salvation Armies, library sales. We'd even go on Facebook, Craigslist, wherever we could find books and then sell them back on Amazon. Well, then we started realizing that Prime has a big advantage. There's a lot of seasonality. There's market inefficiencies. So the idea is, what if we could buy on Amazon and resell on Amazon? Now we've got something really scalable. We can access it from anywhere. So if we want to go down to Mexico for the weekend, we could actually buy books in Mexico. I mean, you should be on a beach drinking fruity beverages, but if you want to work, you could. So we kind of drafted up this idea. Amazon lets you see some of their data through their API. And so these are some of the data points you can have. And I'm not an artist, as you can obviously tell. This was the first sketch of, you know, the ISBNs, the title, what's the lowest price, what's Amazon's price, what's the number of offers, and then can we set up some filters or some sliders to kind of figure out, you know, let's just get all the data in front of us and see if we can hone in on books that you can buy cheap, merchant fulfilled, and flip FBA. Fortunately, I've got a good user interface guy, much better developer than my drawings. He was able to take my drawing from this and make it look a little bit more beautiful. So this is what FBA, or what eFlip looks like. We call it FBA Arbitrage. We've got a database, and again, nobody has every single book that's on Amazon. We've got as many as we can. We're actually still adding to it. We've got a huge database. It's not live. Again, Amazon limits the way you can access their data. We don't scrape it. We're not doing anything illegal there. But we update our entire database at least once a day, and in many cases, twice a day. So our data is about as current as we can be, as far as what Amazon will allow us to be. What you do is you have Amazon's entire database of books with a rank under 3 million. We don't include books higher than that for two reasons. One, they're not likely to sell again in the near future. So we don't want you really buying them and sitting on them forever. It's not good for you. You're not happy, then we're not happy. And two, it keeps the database running faster. We've got, you know, 20+ million ISBNs we could throw into this thing, but it would just slog it down and be filled with useless books. So we kind of filter it down for you. After that, you can set your own parameters. And the way this works, again, I did marketing, we're all about acronyms, but use the facts to make data-driven decisions. So FACS, filter, analyze, calculate, snag. Well, you already saw the beautiful filters. You can set those up. If you watch some of the eFlip demos, you'll get a feel of how to set these. So basic search would be to find cheap books between $1 and $5, used, merchant fulfilled typically. Amazon's on the listing for a high amount. Sometimes you change the new sliders. You can say, I want books with a rank that's really good, under 250,000, and search from there. You set your filters however you want. You can even type in individual numbers. It's not just preset options. You can get as granular as you want. From there, you click search, and every single option that meets this criteria will now pop up and you can have access to it. From there, you're going to analyze. So if you click, you know, we see this book is selling for $3.16 used. Amazon's selling it for $100, which means it's probably a textbook. The only books that Amazon's going to sell for that expensive is like a really niche technical book, or typically textbooks are going to be in this range. Lots of used offers. You can see there's probably an older book. There's tons of people selling it, and the price is low as a result. Well, if you click on the ISBN button itself, it's going to bring up all the prime offers. So used is $3.16 plus shipping. Prime is going to be $7, $7, $10. There's no margin there. We can't buy it for $3 plus shipping and then try and sell it for $10 and hope to make a profit. So that's it. You move on to the next one. So you work your way down the list until you find something like this. So here's the lowest prime offers start in the $40 to $50 range. The lowest used price is $3.99 plus shipping. So that is pretty good. Now you got to analyze it a little more. So from there, you can click on the camel button, or I use the Keep It extension right in my Chrome browser. I can see the charts right there without having to click anywhere else. We can see the sales rank history for the last year. And again, this is awesome. We've got a really nice seasonality here showing up in the fall, August and September. And we've also got it showing up again in January. So this is a typical textbook trends. Even in the off season, the worst this was ever ranked was just over 100,000. So this book is selling nearly every single day from what we can tell from the data. This is great. There's lots of demands. If we look at the used price over time, again, we got an awesome spike during textbook season, went up to about 120 bucks for the lowest used price, came back down in the off season, a little bit of a spike in January, and a little bit of a spike in March for whatever reason. So again, the demand is there. It's a textbook pattern. The price pattern is there. So I like what I'm seeing. And if you want, you can even pop in there and go look at the Keep It charts. You can go find this book outside of Amazon, Add All, and Bookfinder. We'll find this on Alibris and Half.com and eBay. So you can find this book other places as well if you don't want to buy it just on Amazon. And then from there, you can go back and look, are there actual copies of this available? So the cheapest option, $3.99, is from Janky Books, and that should be a big red flag. Typically, their books have water damage. I stay away from buying that. I'll buy acceptable books all day long, but I don't buy stuff with water damage. I don't want to deal with mold. It's just not worth it. If we bump down here, it's a newer seller. I don't know if there's a Ryan Garvey in the house. Hello, if you're there. You know, newer seller, that doesn't deter me. You know, slight water damage, very good. That doesn't really line up, so maybe that's not great. Maybe you want to buy from a more reputable seller, 12,000 transactions, and a good rating for a little more expensive. So these are some of the options you could buy. From there, you're going to click the calculator icon. We actually just updated this to factor in all the new fees that are out there. So it shows the item's weight. You can plug in your purchase price. So if you wanted to buy the janky books copy, which I wouldn't recommend, but if you did, your total buy cost would be about $8. And it's got your different margins here. So some people say, hey, I need to make at least 50% margin. And these are with the old fees, so it's going to be slightly higher today. But if you want to make a profit of $3.99, so a return on your investment, ROI, you'd have to price it at about $20. Well, we know that the lowest prime prices are in the $40 to $50 range. So if you want to match those, match the lowest prime price at $47.62, you're going to make about 350% return on your investment, or a profit of about $27 for one book. Well, that's going to pay back a good chunk of your monthly eFlip subscription, and maybe you can buy multiple copies. Well, what if instead you bought that $9 copy plus shipping from a reputable seller? Well, again, and let's say you even further compressed your margins and you wanted to price this at about 40 and get the very next sale. Even at those prices there, you'd still make a little over 100% return for a profit of about $15 on that one book. And again, you can ship it to yourself, make sure you check it in, make sure it's the right book, or you can ship these directly to a prep company, pay them $1, and not have to worry about it. So that's filter, analyze, calculate, and then the last step is the fun step, snag. It should be purchased, but then it wouldn't be faxed, and we got to make the acronym work. So you can do this. This is my lovely front porch area, and get a handful of those, although we've now outsourced most of that to prep companies, so our mailman loves us again. So that's the way the software works, and at this point, we'll jump in and let's do some questions.
Awesome. So question number one, scrolling back up, Vic Connor also recommended AdWords Keyword Planner for trend data and asked, what is an NPR story?
NPR is when you're scrolling the channels looking for your favorite rock band station or country station, I won't judge. NPR is that really boring, it's National Public Radio. It's usually at about 89 or 90 on the FM dial, and it's really dry, people just kind of sharing stories. There's a lot of podcasts now if you want to listen to it that way. But there's an NPR story, maybe I'll try and pull it up while we're talking here, about two guys, I think in Utah, that basically figured out a lot of these patterns several years ago before this was popular, and were buying books in the off season, storing them in storage units, and then selling the textbooks back during season and making pretty good money doing it.
Especially back then, they were probably snagging up best of the best.
Yeah, exactly. There's very few. I like to tell people that if you're going to join eFlip, you're going to become a novice stock trader. You're going to learn to read charts. You're going to move the market. You're going to see who the market makers are, and you're going to attempt to play around in at least a little bit more on unregulated space. I day traded for a while. I actually lived in China in college for a semester, a summer, and day traded stocks, and I loved it, but I was terrible at it because there's big fish out there that know what they're doing, and they will eat your lunch. And Amazon, there's big fish as well, and you can run into them, but in general, it's a little bit of a Wild West market still.
And question number two, again, if you guys have questions, drop those in the chat, and also hop over to our Facebook page where we have some questions too. Does eFlip learn seasonal trends in order to perform long-term flips?
It doesn't do the analysis for you. I'm going to post the NPR story. I just pulled it up. It's in the comments here if you want to see that. It's just it's a transcript from some brothers that did this. This story came out in 2014, so again, a little before probably more of the big fish were in here. So they probably made a killing if they're not still doing it. All right, so does it perform long or seasonal trends or kind of learn them? What we do is we actually have a database of known textbooks. So we have, again, everything with a rank under 3 million that's in our database shows up in what's called the all books section. After that, we've got a database. I work with wholesalers, which are a fancy term for the middlemen. There's 3 major wholesalers that buy books from publishers and sell them to college bookstores. There's lots of middlemen in this industry. If you want to make money, be a middleman. And that's what you're doing with eFlip. You're just providing a service, buying it, merchant fulfill where people don't necessarily want to buy it, and you're going to sell it prime, perform that service, and make a profit, hopefully, in the due time. So we've got a database, a subcategory. Last I checked, I think we have about 300,000 to 500,000 ISBNs. We update it twice a year as the new demand lists come out. So these wholesalers give demand lists that say these are books that we know we have demand for. Colleges are going to use them. They're not all textbooks necessarily. Some of them might be like the Penguin Classics, or just books that are going to be as required reading in college. But we do have a database there of books that are most likely to show seasonality when it comes to textbook season. If you join eFlip, you get access to that database as well. So you can actually go in and hopefully speed up the research process when you're trying to find the textbooks.
And if I saw correctly, if you guys do find books that you know what the ISBN is and you know exactly what to look for, there's a title search as well.
Yep.
Where you can plug that in and search for a specific book.
Yeah, if you're going to do that, make sure you use the 10-digit ISBN. That's our database is built off the ASIN, or Amazon Standard Identifying Number. And so we just have 10-digit ASINs or ISBNs. It keeps it simpler. You can also search for keywords like accounting or neuroplasty or chemistry or whatever specific niches that you want to go into. And you can also look by publisher. So if you know some, Cengage and Pearson, Wiley, everybody knows the major textbook companies, and you can search for those for sure. But if you find some niche, like Harvard books or Harvard University Press or Cambridge University Press, some of those academic books, you can actually hone in on just those titles as well. And that may give you an idea. eFlip's great because it's not like drop-down menus. Everybody's not doing the exact same search as everybody else. You can get as granular as you want, and I encourage people to go down rabbit trails. People ask, well, why wouldn't you do this yourself? Well, when I first got access to eFlip, when we ran our beta tests, I think I spent between $6,000 and $7,000 in the first week, and I bought, I think, something like 500 books, and I realized I barely scratched the surface. Mm-hmm. So I suppose if somebody was well capitalized and could run this all day, every day, or have a computer that did it for them and had, several $100,000 cash, maybe they could, move the market a little bit. But in general, the market's much bigger than most people understand, and there's so many rabbit trails you can go down. You'll see when you get into it.
Yeah, it really is massive. Just looking at when I signed up for this thing, drove out to a coffee shop because that's where I do my best work. Gets me out of the house, and I sat down. I said, okay, let's try this eFlip thing. Set my filters to just the most basic. Went through a few things, and just by adjusting, it's cool because the link. The little title will go gray, at least on my end. I don't know if that's
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that's on everybody's end.
So that's awesome. So it goes gray when you've clicked on it. So if you search those same filters, you'll see gray, 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 green. Okay, I haven't looked at that one. Just by going all gray, looking at all those, and then changing one tiny setting, boom, you get all greens again. There are so many options.
Yeah, and again, we're updating the data. It's not continuous in that we update every single book every single minute. That's not possible with Amazon's limitations. But we're updating several thousand ISBNs every single minute, which means if you refresh your search, so if you click the search button again, you can wait an hour to come back, click it again. You'll have new green books that pop up that weren't there before.
Mm-hmm. Next up is, does the prep company do the listing for you or just the prepping?
Yeah, good question. So this is something I actually misunderstood when I was starting to look at prep companies. I reached out to Texas Prep Pack and Chip or TexasPPS.com. Tony Patty, I think it's his company, or he's either the founder, the manager, or both. I think it's his baby down in Texas. And I misunderstood because I thought they would list for you. So literally you just drop ship the books, they throw them into your account, you can throw a price on it. It doesn't work exactly that way. So they're going to receive them for you. So if you live in like a big apartment complex in New York City or Chicago and you can't get books physically delivered to your house, that's great. They'll receive them for you. They're going to keep them in a bin with your name on them. And then you basically have a Google Drive. Everything they do is done through Google Docs. Again, Google's going to take over the world. They got some great software. So you can basically put in the titles of the books you're buying with the ISBN, and then you put the Amazon order number just so you can track it yourself. And when I do that, I also put the costs. So the amount I paid for the book, as well as what my estimated list price is going to be just for me. Then that speeds up the process later. They're going to receive the books. They're going to actually check your spreadsheet for you and make sure that the book, you'll also write the condition of the book. So you'll say good or acceptable or like new. They'll check the book, make sure the ISBN is an exact match. If it's like an instructor's edition or an international edition or something you're not allowed to sell, they'll catch that. They know books. That's what they do. They'll also then check the condition. So they're not going to go through and grade the book for you. They're not going to say it's got light markings or it doesn't have the CD. They're just going to say it's good or very good. And again, they've got people that have worked half-price books. If you guys are familiar with that, they've got chains all over. One of their guys worked there, I think, for like 20 years and understands the book industry, knows how to grade books. So you're going to give up a little control. I like to page through a book and say, hey, this book has, minimal markings, or it's got crisp pages, or, light shelfware, whatever terms you use to describe a book. I like to do that. I think it helps your listing stand out. With a prep company, they're just going to tell you good or very good. So, and then when it comes to listing, you have to list yourself. So there's so many different listing softwares out there. Again, I'll give a little AccelerList plug, check them out. But you can list with a spreadsheet, you can list directly through Amazon, ScanLister, Inventory Lab, Scan Power. I mean, there's 1,000 ways to list. So you can list your own books. They'll give you the Google Doc and say these books have arrived, the ISBNs match, and the condition is as stated or better or worse. From there, you can just list them yourself. So you could actually just copy paste all those into a spreadsheet, put your prices in, put your cost information, upload to Amazon, build a shipping plan, then they'll take over from there. So it's not completely hands-off, unfortunately, but they're going to receive it for you. All you have to do is list it and then put your own price on it, and they've already got the condition, they've matched up the ISBN. They'll then deal with packaging your boxes, doing box level contents if your shipment gets split, so you don't have to worry about that yourself. They'll ship it in for you. And depending on where you are in the country, here in Denver, I pay about 30 cents a pound to ship to an Amazon warehouse because we don't have any in our neck of the woods. They're building one. Hopefully they'll be up and running this year and it'll be really cheap and they'll accept books. We'll see. Texas, where they're located, I think my average shipping rate is about 18 cents a pound. So I'm actually saving about 12 cents a pound, which on a textbook could be 3, 4, 5 pounds. I could actually save close to 50 cents just by having it shipped from Texas instead of Denver. So now that dollar a book is actually cut down to 60 or 50 cents, depending on how heavy the book is. So it works out well on a number of fronts.
Awesome. And do any of the books, whoa, there we go. They just popped up quick. Do any of the books we buy and list on Amazon have any restrictions for reselling?
So books in general is an ungated category. That being said, there's been a little bit of fake books popping up recently or counterfeit titles coming over from India. Unfortunately, there's people that are trying to take advantage and make money in a profitable space. It's just part of the game. What Amazon does, they've actually gone through some lawsuits through the publishers recently and have turned in a lot of those bad sellers' names. And the publishers are actually going after those sellers and trying to remove them from Amazon and sue them. Hopefully that works. There was a few books out there. Some of you, there's a couple YouTube videos that went around. I'm trying to think what it was. There's I think a DSM-5 book that got restricted because there were so many fakes on it and so many just bad copies of it that Amazon said, all right, enough's enough. No one's allowed to sell this prime. And so there's a couple books like that. I only know of 2 or 3 books that ever got restricted. If we find those, we actually remove those from our eFlip database so you don't buy them. So if you find anything else like that, let us know. We'll yank them. So there shouldn't be any restrictions, but Amazon's constantly changing their algorithms. We'll see. But for now, you can list any book. I would caution against listing books as new. Amazon's been cracking down this year, especially on people selling books in new condition. A lot of the people out there, the gurus or whatever we want to call ourselves, I guess, are saying don't, go ahead and just list the book as new. If it looks really clean and looks like no one's ever opened it, go ahead and sneak it. Just say it's new. By the time it goes through the mail, it's going to get beat up a little anyway. I've never played that game, and Amazon now is requiring receipts from the publishers. So if you're selling a lot of books new condition, they're going to come back to you and say, well, how do you know it's new? And you say, well, it looks new. They're going to go prove it. Where's your receipt? So a lot of sellers playing that game actually got shut down, had to apologize profusely to get reinstated. So don't sell new. Mm-hmm. Stick to used. If it's great condition, sell it used like new. Nothing wrong with that. The buy box only goes to used copies, although they're going to open that up to new copies as well. But they'll be separate buy boxes. There's a used buy box. Most students are going to want the cheapest copy available. And if you can be used and on the buy box, you're in a great spot there.
Nice. Vic asks, how do you package boxes? Is there a standard size box? If I am in the process of creating an FBA shipment, do you guys fill in the weight and dimensions?
Yeah, good question. Vic, how good at Tetris are you? Books are nice because you don't have to do a whole lot of prep work to them. The couple things to keep in mind, your package cannot be more than 50 pounds. Mm-hmm. So don't go any more, even if it's 50.01. I've had those get flagged, and you have to apologize and kiss Amazon's ring before they'll let you open that box. They could even then refuse it at the warehouse and ship it back to you. They're trying to protect their employees. Their employees are working their tails off, walking around on concrete all day, making decent money, but not great money, and they don't want them throwing their backs out. So no more than 50 pounds. For us, we typically pack books in 18 by 12 by 10 inches. or sometimes 16 by 12 by 10, it depends. 18 by 12 by 10 can get right to 50 pounds, especially with textbooks. 16 by 12 by 10 is a little bit better. I think that's the medium size box from Home Depot. You can pick those up for about 60 cents a box. So I like having the same size box. I could find boxes for free probably if I went dumpster diving, but I've got better things to do with my time. And it's nice to have the same size box. So we do one box at a time, then you don't have to deal with split shipments for the most part. So I got a pile of books on one side, my computer and scanner in the middle, and a box over on the other side. And I literally just fill, list, label, throw it in the box, wait till the box is full, close that batch. I don't have to provide box level contents now. Again, most of the time they go to the same place. And I'm not putting poly bags on it. I don't really have to put a lot of stuffing in there because I'm just going to fill that box until it can't hold another book. And then they're not moving around. Books, they're not unicorns. They're precious they're just a commodity. Unless it's like a really nice collectible book, in which case you should probably sell out on eBay. So literally wedge them in. I might throw a little bit of dunnage or crumpled paper on top just so they don't move around a little bit. Close it up, tape it up, and throw labels on it, and we move on to the next box. So very straightforward.
Awesome. I'm going to hop over to the Facebook page. Looks like ways to scale up an eFlip business, going for higher priced books versus heavy volume. If volume work, how to work with a prep center and still keep good ROI?
Yeah, so there's two things to keep in mind. One, by its nature, eFlip is scalable already. You don't have to drive to a thrift store and waste time sitting in traffic. If anybody lives in Denver, it's a great city, but traffic's terrible. I'm sure Californians, it's worse, so I apologize. Anyway, you can just jump online and buy without having to fight traffic, or if you have 5 minutes, you can buy some books. So it's scalable from that standpoint. When it comes down to ROI, it depends on what you're optimizing for. If you don't have a lot of money, you need to optimize for ROI. If you have a pile of cash that you can play with and buy a lot of books with, it's less about ROI and more about profit per book. So for me, if most people come in, they're going to try and find the penny books or books selling for $4 or $5, including shipping, merchant fulfilled, that they can sell for 20 and 30 and 40 prime. And they're out there. And even though that's the lowest hanging fruit, there's still books out there today that you can buy that way because the market's always changing. So those are great. You buy a book for $5, sell it for 30. By the time Amazon takes their chunk, you pay yourself back for the $5. You might profit $12 or $13. So your ROI is going to be like 250%. It's awesome. But you only made $12. If you're willing to buy more expensive books, so the basic mantra or goal is to buy low, sell high. When it comes to eFlip, I like to teach people a little bit to buy high, sell higher. So buy books for $20 and $30 and $40. I'll buy books for $50, $60, $70, or $100. On a $100 book, if you sell it for $200, the way Amazon's fees work, there's a very large fixed fee, and then the marginal fee is just 15%. So on a $10 book, by the time Amazon takes their fees out, you're left with about $350 in profit now. On a $100 book, by the time Amazon takes fees out, you're left with closer to $80. So your margins are much better on higher priced books. And I'd rather spend $100, sell it for $200, and maybe make $50 of profit. So it's only 50% ROI, which again, if you're in retail arbitrage or private label, maybe that's a great ROI number for you. Books were spoiled. We love to see 3 and 4 and 500% ROI because you pick a book up for $1, sell it for 10, you made 300% return or 250% return. We're spoiled that way, but it's more about profit per book. So if I have to spend 100 and I can make 50 for a few clicks and processing it myself or paying the prep company $1, I'd rather go that route. So don't be afraid to spend a little bit. You don't need to spend 100. You can spend 20 and try and earn a profit of $10 or $20 per book. So again, 50 to 100% ROI, but the profit per book or profit per click is a little bit higher, which is more important in my opinion.
Yeah, I can actually attest to that. Of course, I think anyone who gets eFlip for the first time, we filter between the penny and the $5, and we want to go for like the 100 plus selling books. And I think the most I've ever spent on a book for Amazon was maybe $7, $8, $9 from Goodwill. And eFlip day one, I had bought this book, and it was I put $24.99 into it. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I've never spent this much on a book before. And then when I checked it in to do the shipment, I even took a screenshot, shared inside of our eFlip group. I was like, guys, this stuff works. And I was going to make a $45 profit as the low FBA price.
Yeah. So don't be afraid to spend some money. Yeah. Again, if you don't have a lot of money starting out, there is a learning curve that comes with this. It's not like you can jump in there and start buying books and you'll have it all figured out. You got to figure out which buyers to buy from. We've got a private eFlip group as well for members. So if you do join eFlip, we'll welcome you over there as well, and you can learn from us and you can learn from Chaz at the same time. So best of both worlds. But if you're there's a learning curve, and if you've never sold books, you're not familiar with rank, some of that's just going to come over time. So I always recommend sourcing physical books as well. Go to your local thrifts, try and learn books as a category, and then jump into eFlip. Or if you are in a limited area, you can't get out and source during the day, then eFlip may be a great way to start. But don't jump in and buy $50 books on day one unless you have a lot of money to play with and you can make mistakes, or you've got a pretty good understanding of data and kind of the stock market philosophy. But start smaller and then work your way up and try and focus on profit per book. That's more important than the ROI that we like to brag about.
And next is sourcing books in Canada and using prep centers in the Canada marketplace in order to send books into Canada FBA. It's a mouthful, James. That way you don't have to pay large amounts to ship from the US across the border.
Are there books in Canada? No, I'm kidding. Actually, I saw that same question. James, okay. Looks like you've got a U.S. flag there with back-to-back World War champions on it. So if you're in Canada, looks like you like America at least. So that's great. Good question. You can source books from anywhere in the world as long as they're on Amazon.com. So eFlip only works on Amazon.com. We've explored it in the UK and also in Canada. The API works a little bit differently. So from a technical perspective, it's a little harder to pull the data. Secondly, the markets aren't as advanced and people don't necessarily care about Prime as much. So in some of the test scenarios we've run, the opportunities for flipping merchant fulfilled to Prime aren't quite what they are in the US. So we're still exploring opening up in different markets, but for now, we've decided to hone in and make eFlip as good as we can here in the US. So you can be in Canada, buy books in the larger US market. There's more textbooks in this market. Ship them to a prep company in Texas, open an account in Amazon, they'll send them back to you. You never have to ship books across the border and you can sell into this market. But at this time, you can't buy books on Amazon.ca.
Awesome. Next one's probably going to be the single-handedly the most important question you can answer is, can you flip Amazon Prime to your seller's account?
Like buy it Prime and just have them put your label on it in the actual warehouse?
That's what the question was.
All right, so there's two questions that get asked a lot. One is like you're buying it Prime, it's at the warehouse. Can't, rather than shipping it to you and you ship it back, can you just slap your label? Well, no, Amazon won't do that for you. Secondly, how do you know it's the right book and in the right condition? So if you just had them do that, someone had a fake book or an international edition that's taped up to look like a US edition, now it's on you. So even if they could, you shouldn't. The second question that gets asked is, can I buy Prime books and resell Prime? Listen very carefully here. The answer is no. You're not allowed to use your Prime benefits for resale or commercial purposes. That's exactly from Amazon's terms of conditions. Now, if you get caught, you won't lose your account. At least I've not heard of anybody that has. You'll just lose your Prime account. So you'll lose your Prime buying privileges. You could maybe open another account, but they may shut that one down at a later time. So there's two ways to get around it. One, don't buy Prime. That's the easiest. Just buy merchant fulfilled, ship them to yourself, and go from there. Every once in a while, there's outlier people that sell Prime, like Jensen Books and Rent You and Amazon warehouse deals. You'll see these players a lot that just after a while they've been in their inventory, they're just looking to sell it. So a lot of times they'll drop their Prime prices right down to the bottom, right close to merchant fulfilled. So every once in a while there'll be a gap. You'll see a Prime book for $6 with a couple other merchant fulfilled books for $6, and then it jumps way up, and the next Prime book's at $30. You go, well, that's awesome. I could buy it Prime and flip it Prime. If you're going to do that, here's two more ways to do it. One, a little bit gray area, so take it with a grain of salt. You could buy it, but don't get the free 2-day shipping. Now you're not using your Prime benefits. It's going to take about 5 days to show up at your house. The reason Amazon doesn't want you using your Prime benefits to resell items is they lose a lot of money, to the tune of 30 to 40 million, if I remember right. Every quarter they're losing that much money on shipping. So it's a loss leader for them. And again, they pass along a lot of that cost to us as sellers, unfortunately, but it's a small price to pay for a flexible business. So you could buy it without the free 2-day shipping, then you're technically not using Prime benefits. I've emailed customer support and I've got an email that I've saved that says, yes, you're allowed to do that. You may want to do that yourself, but just because one customer service rep told you that doesn't mean it's okay. So the white hat, or the right way you should do it, open a business account. You can buy Amazon Prime items to your business account and then resell them through your personal account. And that's probably the right way to do this.
And
But if you want to sleep better at night, don't buy Prime, period. Just buy merchant fulfilled.
Yeah. And I'll clarify on that real quick, because I had somebody had confusion with this, is your business account is not your seller's account.
Correct.
Yep.
So you get an Amazon business account, and you actually get free Prime shipping with it if you buy, I think, $35 at a time, just like anybody else. So you can stack up $4 or $5, $6 books, or 6 or 7, whatever it takes to get the $35 and ship them yourself. I love buying Prime because when it comes to returns are a necessary evil with this business. Not only are Americans impatient, but we don't want to deal with hassle. And so when you buy merchant fulfilled books, especially when you're starting out, there's some sellers that you'll run into and you'll learn to stay away from. We've got a list of those in our Facebook group. You can jump in there and learn from other people's mistakes and other people's experiences. But if I buy 1,000 books, I think we bought about 800 last month. If I buy 1,000 books, I'm probably going to return about 50 of those, 40 to 50. Not a huge percentage, but it varies between 2 to 5% returns. So when I return those, it's a pain in the butt because I have to email the seller and say, hey, you said it was a student edition, it's international. You said it was in good condition, it's got water damage, I don't want it. So, and then you got to go back and forth with the seller. It can be a little bit of a hassle at some point. You can always file a claim. Amazon's always going to get you back, but it takes time. So if you're willing to do that when other people won't, you can make profits. When you buy Prime books, no hassle. You simply go in and say, hey, the book's in a different condition than ordered, or it doesn't match what was ordered. Amazon approves it immediately, gives you a prepaid label. You literally just throw it back in its package, throw it on your front porch. UPS shows up at your front door the next day and takes it away, and you get refunded as soon as they pick it up. Prime is awesome, and that's why people pay for it.
All right, last one. Lots of content to be covered on this. Would you talk about various pros and cons of sourcing strategies, quick flip versus the long tail, risky sellers to stay away from? I think you covered that one already.
Yep.
Niches in textbooks that have occasional nuggets, timing of buying textbooks already covered, and VA strategies.
That's a lot. Let's start with, I think I printed this question out as well. So let me see what we got. All right, quick flip versus long tail. So there's a phrase that is, fast nickel or slow dime. You want to have a mix of both. And again, it depends on what you're optimizing for. If you don't have a lot of money early on, you got just a couple $100 that you're going to play with, then you're going to need to focus on quick flips that you can turn fast, make your money back, get high turnover, and then be able to reinvest that money or take it out and pay your rent or put food on the table, whatever you need. If you have a little more money to play with, not only can you buy more expensive books, but you can actually buy some more longer tail. Longer tail just means they take longer to sell. So when you look at that, keep a chart instead of it being, looks like a great heart rate monitor that someone drank a lot of Rockstar energy drink. There's a little plug for you. Instead of looking at that, you look at the chart, maybe it's selling once a month or once every other week. So those are your books that are going to be a little longer tail. They're not going to sell as fast. I wouldn't advocate buying a book. The more sales a book has, the more likely someone's willing to pay a lot more for it Prime. If the book is selling twice a month for the last 6 months, your odds of the next person coming along that prefers Prime, about 50%, half of Amazon's customers in the US have Prime. So half of them are willing to pay more for Prime, but only some of those are willing to pay just obscene amounts more. If it's a $10 merchant fulfilled book, maybe 1 out of 20 Prime customers would pay $100. Maybe 1 out of 10 would pay 50. Maybe 1 out of 5 would pay 30, right? So the closer you bring the price, the more Prime customers are going to pick your item. So the longer tail items, it's more of a sit and wait. If you want to buy it for 10 and maybe get 40, you might sit on that for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 months, or until the next textbook season when there's a big spike in demand if it's a textbook. So I wouldn't recommend building a huge inventory full of long tails. You want to have a good mix. You want to get some of those quick winners, even if you're just making 25, 30% ROI on those. And then you want to have your longer tail flips. And for longer tail flips, you need to make sure your ROI is higher. Don't build an inventory of 1,000 books that are going to make you 25% ROI, but might take 3 months to sell. It's not going to be good. The market's going to change, and you're just going to be sitting there waiting for your sales to come in. So be a little smarter. Also, in general, if you haven't sold books, books are a little more long tail than other categories. There's so many different books. Last I checked, there's about 18.5 million books that actually have a sales rank. So there's a lot of books out there to choose from, and a lot of them sell just a handful of times a year. Obviously, you can learn to read the charts and understand what's happening. But if you have an inventory of 1,000 toys versus 1,000 books, your toys are going to sell a little more often. They're going to have higher turn rate with toys than you will with books. So books, by their very nature, are a little longer tail, and you just have to be prepared for that. All right, other questions there. Risky sellers to stay away from. We hit that already. niches in textbook that have occasional nuggets. Find a favorite publisher. Find some publishers that are very niche, small. Again, when you're in eFlip, you can see those categories and understand what's happening. Let me share my screen again. I'll show you what I mean. All right, can you see that? Are you able to see my screen there, Chaz?
Yep.
Okay, so you can see the publishers. They're the black information here. So let's say you find let's do a regular search here. So, you know, a penny to a couple bucks, a couple dollars new, and a handful of dollars prime. We'll take the rank up to 500,000, just leave it at that. So if you go through here and you start finding a profitable book, for example, and you can sort this however you want. We can sort by rank, we can sort by number of offers. If you find a good, so, you know, Cengage, Pearson, these are, you know, specific, you know, they're textbook specific, but they're large publishers. Some of the smaller ones like LWW, you might find something like that and go, hey, I wonder what else they're selling. You can plug it into the publisher. It's going to apply the exact same parameters you just applied, and it's going to find every single book out there in Amazon's database that meets this criteria that's sold by this publisher. So if you find good publishers, especially publishers that don't sell on Amazon, so it looks like all these have an Amazon list price, there's a lot of publishers that don't allow Amazon to sell their books, which means there's no theoretical ceiling on how high you can sell the book for other than what the market will bear. So you can get really, you can really zoom in and find some publishers that have some good good books to buy. So yeah, niches, again, you'll find some keywords as well. So you can find some words here like, you know, medical is pretty broad. You want to find as niche topics or niche terms as you can and plug those in. And that might open up some good ideas for you as well. Again, rabbit trails are your friends when it comes to this. The other thing I like to do is I like to teach people to look for, use the Keepa extension for one. When you come in here, for example, let's find a book, you know, if you find that textbook pattern, once this loads, okay. So this book, again, the green is the sales rank, so how often it's selling. This is 3 months. It looks like it's selling about 10 to 12 times, or roughly, you know, 3 or 4 times a month. So roughly weekly. That's not great, but it, you know, it's not bad either. A lot of books, you'll end up with a used price that's roughly around 20 bucks, but every once in a while it drops down to 5. Again, that's the market inefficiency. You can set bait for those of you that like fishing. This isn't a great example. We have to go find a more expensive book if we wanted to do this. You can set bait that when someone comes into the market and drops the price, you'll get notified. So Keepa will actually email you. So here's an example. Here's a book that's selling for $10. This is very good condition, reputable seller. That's great. There's a little bit of a gap after them. This book normally is around, you know, a buck or so, but right now it's up for $10 for whatever reason. This chart's not very good. It's not selling a lot, but you can come in here and say track product and say, hey, if Amazon, we can just leave that blank. If the used price hits $9.99, so if someone comes in and beats this very good price, you can then, you know, there's my email address if you want it, but you can then go in and it'll email you when a new price hits the market that's lower than that. So if you can set up enough of those traps or fishing bait, if you will, you can then get notified right in your email when some of these books drop in price. And that's another good way to play with it. Timing of buying textbooks, again, learn to read the charts. A lot of books sell year round. Again, the Keepa charts are going to load right in your browser for you if you use Chrome. So here, this book didn't sell. There it sold a copy. So this isn't a great book to flip. Looks like it's only sold twice in the last year. That's not a good book. A lot of books that show the seasonality where we get that smiley face pattern in August, September, or in January, those are good books to look for. And you'll see, again, the books that are a couple editions old, a lot of them still sell well, but you'll see that chart kind of open up. And actually, I've got an example. And we'll move on to a last question or two. Hold on. This is pretty good software, actually. I'm a little slow at it, but it's pretty good. So here, can you see that screen again as well?
Yep.
All right, so that's where we finished. So new editions. Here's a third edition of a textbook, and again, here's that pattern. So this is actually a camel chart, so the chart goes the other way. You got to retrain it in your mind. The best rank or zero rank is up here, and then 100,000 is down below. So instead of the smiley face, we see a frown face. Depends on what you want to look for. Here, again, we see really good demands in the fall and in the spring, like you would expect. In the off season, the demand comes down a little bit. A really good thing to look at is what's the worst it was ever ranked in the last 3 months or 6 months or a year. In this case, it's just over 100,000. That book still has a lot of demand. What's interesting, this isn't even the most recent edition. There's actually a 4th edition that just came out, and you can see that it hadn't sold because it's a brand new edition, so the rank went down quickly, and now it's starting to sell quite a bit. You're going to see a textbook pattern develop over time with that. Well, if we go back 2 editions, so 4th is the most recent, 3rd was still a really strong chart. You know, we see a very, the line pegs 0 or pegs 1 for several weeks, and then it does it again in the spring. 2 editions old, you still see the pattern, but it's not as strong, it's not as tight. Those heart rate pings are a little more spread out, and the worst this book was ranked in the last year was 400,000. So that tells you that that book's not going to sell as well in the off season, although it still is selling. So you just got to learn to read the charts, trust the data, and a lot of textbooks do sell year round. You just have a better chance of selling them during the textbook season. So I'll buy textbooks year round. I don't hold on to them at my house. I don't want to have my basement full of books. I'd rather play ping pong down there and chip golf balls and whatever else my wife doesn't want me doing. I just send them in. Even with storage fees, it's not that much. You might pay 4 or 5 or 6 cents a month on a textbook. If it sits for over 6 months, by the time February 15 or August 15 rolls around, you're going to get hit with long-term storage fees. But you've got a textbook season usually once every 6 months. So if you play your cards right, you should be able to sell it and not have to worry too much about the fees. Awesome. All right, well, it's been a little over an hour. I want to respect everybody's time. I know there's probably people in Pacific time that are probably at work watching this, so kudos to you. Hopefully your boss doesn't walk around the corner. Chaz, any last questions, or do you want to share your extended trial with them as well?
I think we are golden. Thank you so much for your time first. I know that is definitely our most precious asset. So we do have an extended trial. Usually eFlip is a 3-day trial, and it is billed at $80 per month. After that, so we actually have a Rockstars exclusive, which extends that to 7 days. So you can try this thing out for 7 days. If you hate it, you don't have to do it. If you love it, we have, obviously we have Caleb's group, and then we have my group as well for the Rockstars, specifically for eFlip. And so we do have that. You can go to eFlipRockstars.com is the site to go check that out.
Awesome. And when it comes to that, you get the trial, just if you're really on the fence or you're nervous about getting charged, I don't want your money if you're not using the software. So if you happen to go through the 7 days and forget to cancel, just email me. I'll give you a refund. Now don't come back 4 months later and demand a refund for 4 months, because that's not really good. I'm not going to probably not do that unless there's a good reason. But if you are completely on the fence and you're not sure, you can actually sign up for the trial and you can cancel your account right away. You do have to put your credit card in when you sign up. Unfortunately, that's just the way that the plugins work for WordPress. But go ahead and just cancel right away. You'll still be able to access it for the rest of the trial. And then if you like it, you can go back in and enter your credit card information. But that way you won't be charged. So just if you want to sleep better at night. But I'll always take care of you. Again, I don't want your money if you're not using it happily. I see one other question here. I see there's other categories in addition to books. Is there a particular reason books is all we're talking about? Yeah, we just recently launched late November, early December. So just a couple months ago, we launched CDs, DVDs, and vinyl. We don't push those as much. It's much more niche categories. One, you have to be ungated to sell in DVDs and even CDs now if you want to sell it with an MSRP higher than 25 bucks. So it's a limited audience of who can do that. And there's not crazy textbook seasons like there are when it comes to books. So books are much easier. It's an ungated category, much easier to do that. But if you have some equipment and can clean CDs and DVDs, by all means check it out. We've got pretty much the entire database of those categories. They're smaller data sets and easier to track down. So we do have those as well, but books is really the bread and butter and where the most opportunities are.
I just got an idea. You're gonna come out with video games for that?
We could look at it.
Master video games. I am all in with that one.
So video games is pretty broad, right? It's going to include all categories, right? N64, Sega, whatever. Yeah, let me take a note. We could look at it. We've got a guy we found that's really good at tracking down data, so it wouldn't be terribly hard to pull it in.
When you mentioned cleaning, I was just thinking the machines. I know there's a ton of people that go full-time video games. I do every year's garage sale season here in the Northwest for about 3 months, and it's video games all day long.
Yeah, so you got the what is that, Nintendo back behind you there on your shelf? Game Boy or whatever?
Game Boy. Yep. I was gonna flip it, but I want to keep it.
Yeah, I got an N64 in my basement. I still play Mario Kart. Nice. A lot of those games. I'm old school that way. Yeah, I met a guy in Indiana actually that's got a warehouse. He's young. I think he's younger than I am, probably younger than you, but he's got basically software they wrote that goes on eBay and buys, buy it now lots. So
Nice.
they had tons of trial and error.
Mhm.
Hopefully he's not watching this and gets mad at me for sharing this, but they built a really good custom software that through a lot of trial and error, and they bought a lot of junk. They literally, it's like eFlip, but automated, and they're buying video game lots, partying them out and reselling them. He's got, I don't know how big his warehouse is, but it's massive because Indiana's cheap. And he's just storing them. I asked him, what are you going to do with them? He goes, I'm not sure yet, but it's a limited market because most of these games aren't being created anymore.
Mhm.
And so that's going to only mean that the prices will probably continue to go up, especially as people keep wanting to go back old school and buy other things. So he sounds like they run a pretty good business. He was pretty tight-lipped about it, but I know there's some people making some good money doing video games.
Awesome. Well, again, Caleb, thank you so much for your time. Yep, we're good on questions. Again, eFlipRockstars.com gives you the extended 7-day trial. If you do sign up for that, I don't have a name list, so just shoot me a message on Facebook or email at FBARockstars@gmail.com, and I can get you plugged in. But aside from that, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. It's good to finally meet you face to face. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Minneapolis in July.
Yeah, quick plug, Midwest, what was the name? Midwest
Midwest e-commerce.
There you go. We should
MidwestEcom.com, yeah.
Midwest Ecom Conference is coming late July, and Caleb and I are both going to be speakers of that. So check the Rockstars Group. We have a $50 code off, I believe. It's 50 off at checkout, and they'll hook you up with a discount.
Yeah, I got to figure out what we're going to talk about still, but looking forward to meeting a bunch of other sellers. And again, I'm probably going to stick with books for the foreseeable future, but it'll be fun to learn what else is out there.
Absolutely.
So awesome. Well, thanks everybody for your time. Have an awesome weekend ahead. And if you've got questions, post them in the group, and Chaz, just tag me and I'll bounce in and answer stuff as it comes up.
Awesome. We appreciate you. Rockstars, peace out. We'll see you next time.
Later.